Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So we're going to be using a case study from across the pond, from a country that is far more patriotic and protects its freedom of speech, legal allowances, to show the kind of thing we can expect over here. It's gone to a point, I would say, between the UK and the US, where the US is now all grown up. It was our little child a couple hundred years ago. It's grown up. It went through the rebellious adolescent stage, and now it's become an adult in and of its own right. And I'd like to think that the UK could still be there as a guiding force, but it seems like we've come a bit too old and a bit too riddled with mental afflictions that old people tend to get. You could look at Joe Biden for an example of that. And as the new up-and-coming stud seems to be losing his way as well, after the rebellious stage, it's not looking so promising over here. So what does this all mean? Well, this is from the National Basketball Association, the NBA, and Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. Amongst other things, of course, but in particular we're focusing on his ownership of the Dallas Mavericks, not his successful businesses in the past, no. As the NBA will force Dallas Mavericks to play the national anthem before games after owner Mark Cuban scrapped it because the Star-Spangled Banner doesn't represent people from all communities. The Star-Spangled Banner is, of course, from about 1812 to 1814, with the siege on the White House, following the 1776 Declaration of Independence, of course, because it did take a while for that to actually be permitted, and the UK to then go, yeah, okay, fine, you've got your independence, good luck. And turns out the US did quite well with it, up until recently. But nonetheless, it was still in those warring times, and so one particular poet watched the battle take place at Fort McHenry and saw that the storm flag was still flying, and then it was replaced by the full-sized flag of the 15 stars and stripes at the time, and thought it quite poetic after all that to see that the flag still had standing. And this is still done to this very day, even in wars in the Middle East. Jocko Willink spoke about this recently when they were in Ramadi, that although they weren't supposed to fly the US flag over there, it's like, well, if they're going to, then fly the biggest flag as high as you can get it. And you've seen Battle of Jumo as well, and the Second World War, with the iconic raising of the flag there as well. That, sure, it's a thing for other countries around the world as well, but I think in particular for the US and the respect for the flag and all that it represents, as in land of the free and home of the brave. And yet, it seems that neither of those things, of being free or brave, are adulated anymore, which I think would go to show why there is much disdain for the flag, because it is kind of showing them up. It is saying that they kind of go hand in hand, that if you're free, then you've got to be brave. Because, yeah, you're free to make your own decisions, but that also means you have to be responsible for the consequences that happen, in which case you're going to have the bravery in order to handle those consequences, because you and you alone will be responsible for the fallout. And that puts them in a very uncomfortable situation, because that position is not one that they wish to accept, because it means they can't blame anybody else. And that is the name of the game. It isn't really how can we make the best life for ourselves. It is instead, who can we blame when things don't go well. Unfortunately, that is the state of play. But the Star-Spangled Banner anthem itself, although only the first verse is normally sung, there are still 4 verses to it. And in particular, from the third verse, just to say what he's talking about, as every verse ends with the land of the free and the home of the brave, he does say, no refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. The point being, of course, you're then a free man. You're not a slave anymore, or a hireling, or have to answer to the crown. Instead, everybody is equal under the law, and it's as straightforward as that. So when they're saying, oh, it doesn't represent people from all communities, and as Mark Cuban goes on to say, it's that, oh, well, we've got institutional, structuralized racism and all those bad buzzword, and it's not for black people to sort, it's for white people. So the point is, of course, that black people might be struggling, and let's just, tar them all with the same brush, if we will. And it isn't down to any individual black person, because they just don't have the wherewithal in order to function and succeed. Not at all. Instead, it's just down to the all-powerful white person in order to dictate the black person's destiny. And it is down to the white people in order to change the black person's life. No individual freedom at all. No free will of that individual to be able to decide their own destiny and dictate their own fate. Instead, it's just down to the white person to decide what is and is not permitted. And so, of course, land of the free and home of the brave can't reflect the values that everybody has, because they don't want to be free, and they definitely don't want to be brave. Instead, they want things given to them. And that, to me, is the most important lesson to be taken and be concerned about with it coming over here. Of course, we've seen, you can't fly flags. That's how much disdain there is for the Union flag, or even the St. George flag, compared to the Star-Spangled Banner over there. And when it comes to the national anthem over here, no one's really fussed about it. It isn't nearly as big of a thing as it is for the US. The patriotism over here, if you show even a semblance of it, you're told that, that's nationalistic jingoism and is therefore evil, because nation states are evil. That is the crux of their argument. So it is worth seeing what is going on there, understanding exactly where they're coming from, in order to be able to push back against it. And how do you push back against it? Well, of course, you have to be reminded and remember why it was there in the first place, the purpose that it served, and therefore the purpose that it continues to serve. Land of the free and home of the brave is something to actually aspire to. But it is also something that should terrify you. And that should not put you off, because if you're not scared, then you can't be brave. It's only through feeling that fear and doing it anyway and overcoming it that you develop that bravery and the vital personal characteristics to be able to mark out your own legacy in life. And that is definitely what is missing today. So I call upon all of you to do the same. To take that plunge, realise that you and you alone are responsible for your life, and do everything in your power to make it the best for you and those that you care about. But that's it for me. So let me know what you guys think down below. Is it bad to force them to play this anthem? Am I looking too much into it and it isn't really symbolic anymore because they've lost their way and therefore there's no coming back from it, and they should just pick a different anthem instead? Or, they should actually, instill those values that made the country great in the first place. And the same for over here. Either way, let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.